Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I'm just waiting for everyone to join us here, and then we will get started. So just bear with me, and then we will get officially started on the Spanish Golden Visa. So yeah, just bear with me a second. Right. Okay, let's make a start then. Now, we've got people joining us, but it's probably good to start now. And obviously, what I'm going to do is send out a recording to everyone after the webinar. So you will get a copy of this because I know there's obviously a lot of information on the Spanish Golden Visa that people are interested with. So we will get a recording sent out to everybody. On the front page here, obviously, you've got my details. There's a QR code at the top, which you can scan with your phone, and you can put yourself in my diary if you want to have a free consultation about your own situation. Do bear in mind, obviously, I'm aware that a lot of people watching this are from different parts of the world. So obviously, when you scan that, that's got my normal office hours in there. But if you do want to make out-of-office appointments, you've got my email out there at the bottom, which is sam.daines@holbornassets.com. You've also got my telephone number and WhatsApp number, which is 00447969059122. It's a UK number, but I am actually based over here in Spain. But feel free to contact me on that, and I'm happy to do, as I say, out of hours discussions, because a lot really has happened with the Spanish Golden Visa, and it has sort of created this sort of massive sense of urgency for people. So yeah, I mean, I've been sort of talking about a Spanish Golden Visa now for quite a few years, and it's really sort of picked up a lot of momentum last year, really towards the beginning of this year, because of changes that happened with the Portuguese Golden Visa. So if anyone's not aware, towards the beginning of last year, Portugal announced that they would actually change their Golden Visa program. So Portugal was always very popular for people because it had quite a low entry point initially at 280,000 for property, and you could get your Golden Visa. That sort of gradually changed over the years until eventually last year, the Portuguese government said that due to the effect on house prices, they were going to withdraw that, and property was no longer an option. So now when people are looking towards Portugal, you have to invest into funds, businesses, donations, various things, but not property. So obviously a lot of people then look towards Spain because Spain also has a very attractive Golden Visa program where you can invest into property, which we'll come on to, and various other means which will get you the Golden Visa. However, out of the blue, we were expecting it to happen eventually, but out of the blue, sure enough, it was announced that we in Spain here would get, well, a lot of the headlines are that it's going to be withdrawn, but obviously we'll break that apart the sort of the first part of this presentation because it's not quite as simple as that. But yes, so we'll talk a little bit about what we feel this will mean for the Spanish Golden Visa moving forward, and what we know so far. Anybody that knows a lot about Spain will know that that things happen very slowly here, and you know, quite a lot of times things can be announced, and then it takes a while before that actually seeps down and becomes written into the law, if you like. Certainly with Portugal last year, from them announcing it around the beginning of the year of the withdrawal or the change to the scheme, it actually took them to around September, October before it was fully withdrawn. So it gave people time, which we'll come on to. So anyway, if anybody's looking at the screen, please make a note of my my phone number, my email, because you really might want to ask a few questions after this. So feel free to fire anything across. So with no further ado, what I'll do is I'll talk about what we're going to go through today. Now, I'll tell you a little bit to start with about Holborn Pass and Holborn, a little bit about who we are and what we do, and how really we started getting into looking at the Golden Visa for our clients. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Spanish Golden Visa itself and what we know so far the changes are going to be, what we know they won't be, and really how we think that's going to work. We're monitoring it every day, but we know where we stand at the moment as of now. So I'll come on to that, and that's probably the most important thing for people. Then we'll talk a little bit about residency by investment, what that actually means, the Golden Visa program, what that means to people, and what it gives you when you have that. What the Spanish Golden Visa program is as well, the benefits of it. There's a lot of benefits to the Spanish Golden Visa program. It is incredibly, as I say, become incredibly popular. And obviously now, because of the withdrawal, people are even more sort of looking into it to get it done as soon as possible. We'll talk around some of the real estate options you currently have, because there are ways of doing it still, which we'll come on to. And then there are some questions and answers, which we'll save towards the end. So if anyone has any questions, please wait towards the end or put the questions in the comments box, but I'll answer them at the end as best I can if we have time. If not, just send an email across to myself, and I'm more than happy to go into your individual circumstance. So just a little bit about Holborn Assets in terms of who we are and what we do. So we were established back in 1998. So we've been going a long time. We're a British family firm, and we've now got over 500 employees. So we've got 20 international offices all around the world. I work in our office here in Spain. So I work and live down in the Malaga region of Spain. We've got offices over in Portugal, UK, South Africa, Dubai. We basically position ourselves all around the globe so that if people need financial advice, we can actually continue to give them regulated financial advice wherever they move, because people nowadays rarely stay in one place for too long. So the idea with the firm, really, we were a wealth management firm providing financial advice on everything from pensions to investments to mortgages, insurances, all this sort of thing. And over this period of years, we've got around 25,000 clients now, and we've got a very good reputation within the industry. And I'll come on to what made us then start to look into the Golden Visa program and why that became important to us. Just a little bit about me. I've worked in financial services now for 24 years, for a long, long time. I'm qualified in the UK, so I worked for HSBC in the UK, Wesleyan Assurance as well, Nationwide Building Society. I moved over here to Spain around 6 years ago now. So I've been through the whole process of moving, of having to get my residency card here. I know the pros and cons of living here as well in terms of getting things sorted. And yes, so I've worked here now for the last 5 or 6 years, and I now specialize on Spain and specifically the Golden Visa program here in Spain. As I say, we've won numerous industry awards. We've got an excellent rating on Trustpilot. So people that use us are happy with our service. But what actually happened is around 6 years ago, a lot of our clients were speaking to us saying they wanted to have global mobility benefits, wanted to look to invest money in a way that would give them as good a return as they could possibly get, but also something that would allow them to have, particularly in Europe, a golden visa, so that they can move around and they weren't restricted by visas or time spent in particular countries. So it made sense as a wealth management firm to then start to look at the Golden Visa programs. So we don't just do Spain, we do all the different Golden Visa programs from all around the world. So as I say, Portugal by far was the most popular up until last year, and it still is popular, but it has to be done in a slightly different way. So Portugal is actually quite a good alternative to Spain, and I don't want to talk too much around that. But the reason I do mention Portugal a fair bit, and if anyone wants to look at this separately, do bear Portugal in mind, because Portugal has a very unique benefit to it, which is why it's remained popular. And as I say, you can't do property in Portugal now, but you can do investment funds, and there are ways to structure an investment that actually gives you a very good return, but also gives you the golden visa there as well. But anyway, investment. In terms of the Holborn Pass, the idea of this really that anyone using Hbor Pass, the investment for us is a priority because we've got so much experience of providing investment advice. We wanted it to go hand in hand, good advice, and also be able to give people the golden visa card. We've now, up until this year, we've processed well over 1,000 applications. We've had every single application succeed. We've had 100% success rate. We were actually the top provider of golden visas last year. So we've really grown that part of Holborn, and it really is now becoming a very popular part. But as I say, there's lots of different investment programs, there's lots of different golden visa programs. But what we're talking about today, I will touch on Portugal, but we'll talk very much on the way the Spanish program works. So if we talk a little bit about what we know the changes are going to be, okay? So for those who don't know, it was last month that Pedro Sanchez, who's the Spanish Prime Minister, essentially came out and says that they're going to take measures to eliminate the golden visa program. Okay, and this is mainly due to what they feel it is doing to the house prices here in Spain. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit, you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt, if you like, because the headlines that the papers then took was Spain to eliminate the golden visa program, golden visa program gone in Spain, etc., etc. That's not actually the case. What they've said they're going to do is look at the scheme, because their perception is that house prices here in Spain are becoming unaffordable for people living here. And the people investing in golden visas, getting properties that way, are actually driving up the house prices. Now, I'll come on to whether that's true or not. So you can see the bottom of this slide, where it's a little bit of a contentious issue is that there's a new government in Spain, and they've kind of come in wanting to look like they're doing something, quite rightly. But when you actually look down into the figures in terms of Spain, it's difficult to kind of see a correlation with the golden visa and the high house prices. And the reason for that, as I say, if you look at the figures there, that there were 3,273 golden visas issued in 2023. And that 94% of them came from real estate. So obviously there's a number of real estate purchases, and that obviously does have an effect on house prices. But when you look at the amount of housing transactions that took place in 2023, there was 586,000 housing transactions. So if you presume that every one of them golden visa transactions were linked to real estate, it would still only account for 0.5% of the housing market. And in reality, it's probably closer to 0.25%. So it's very unlikely it is having much of an effect on housing prices. And I think when people start to look at these figures, and the government and the people, they will probably come to the conclusion that, they don't necessarily need to get rid of everything. It's just going to be, they might have to tweak how the golden visa program is done. But we will see, we don't know. But as of now, and this is a really important thing to take into consideration, as of now, there has been no changes to the golden visa program. It is business as usual. They haven't done anything. They've just announced that they are going to look at it. The following day after announcing that, they got together essentially and spoke about it, and they've come to the conclusion they need to do more research. They need to look into what they need to do in order to change the golden visa program to help the housing market. But as of today, there's no formal proposals for modification to the Congress. And essentially, what they might end up doing, which is if you look at very popular golden visa programs such as Greece, Portugal, over the period of time that they've been enforced, they've changed. So Portugal, started off as lower 280,000 property investments. Then gradually it changed that the investments had to be in certain areas and not in other areas. Then the investment amount went up to 500,000. So it gradually changed over the years. Greece was the same as well, did exactly the same. However, Spain has never changed. So since it started in 2013, it's always been exactly the same. So what this might be is the start of them changing it, but not eliminating it. So something could be, for example, that they eliminate residential real estate, but they still allow commercial real estate. Or they might say, well, certain areas qualify, but certain areas don't qualify. And that would then help maybe tie it into certain housing problems in certain locations in Spain, as opposed to just one big generic, there's no property going to be accepted for the golden visa. So this is the way we think they will probably go. And again, a lot of the murmurings have been around it. Commercial assets may be okay, but residential won't be okay. So we don't know yet, but this is what we're thinking may happen. Now, this should become clear over the coming weeks and months. What we do know, and this actually proves the same with Portugal, even if they decide to completely eliminate real estate from qualifying for the golden visa, it would have to go through a number of channels in order to get it implemented, which means we feel as a company we're going to have between 6 months to 12 months in the worst case scenario to get everything through. And that gives us time. That gives us time now for people who are wanting to do it to get it through. So this is what from our point of view, from a company point of view, we found out that certainly over the last couple of weeks, we've been completely inundated with people now looking to move ahead, who have maybe just kind of been waiting to go ahead and do it because they now know that they need to do it now. And Spain has a very unique part in terms of the golden visa and qualifying for the golden visa. You don't need to spend any time actually in Spain, so you could start the process now and not actually move over here to 3 or 4 years because there's no minimum stay requirements, which I will come on to. So a lot of people now are thinking, well, they're going to start doing it now. It's also important to, and I think this, a lot of people sort of think about this. If you have a golden visa or you're qualified for the golden visa, so let's say we start a process now, and we get a golden visa for one of our clients, written into Spanish law is that that can't then be retrospectively taken away from you. So if you qualify for the golden visa under the buying of a commercial property, and then the government, which looks like they might do, is going to change that and remove it, that wouldn't affect you. You would still have that golden visa and you could still renew it and renew it and renew it. It would only affect new people applying. And that's exactly what happened in Portugal. So anybody that is interested, and that's the last point on this slide, anybody that's interested in doing this, do it now. You will have time, definitely have time now, but obviously for every week or every month that goes past, you won't. And that's the thing to sort of bear in mind. But it's business as usual at the moment. Nothing has changed in the Spanish Golden Visa program. All there is basically the government coming out and saying that we're going to do this. And you know, to some degree, it's been a bit of a headline grabber. You know, new government coming in, want to be seen to be doing stuff and you know, making changes for the better, which, you know, this may well be, but it will take time for this to go through. It will take time for them to work out exactly what they need to do, and then to implement that will take time. So bear that in mind. And what we do, I won't go through the little areas that we do, but we essentially, for people looking to get the golden visa in Spain or anywhere else, is we essentially act as a one-stop shop. So for people looking to do a golden visa, we actually look at all the real estate opportunities for them. We tend to concentrate on commercial real estate as opposed to residential, although we can look at residential. But the thing is with commercial real estate in Spain, when you look at it as an asset, it's a lot cheaper in terms of taxes. So unlike Portugal or Greece, where we would probably look at residential for clients, when you look at Spain, it costs around 40 or 50,000 less to buy a commercial real estate asset than it does a residential asset. So unless you are buying this property to move and live in straight away, if you know that you're potentially going to sell it, it's not a lot of point to sort of do that straight away and then move and having to pay all that tax essentially. So we tend to look at commercial assets for people, but we can look at residential as well. But we appoint all the lawyers, the solicitors. We do all the due diligence on the commercial or the residential real estate. We manage that real estate for our clients as well. So we do the whole lot. We pay the taxes for our clients as well. So as part of the package, we file the tax returns for our clients. We will get your NIE numbers, so the tax numbers. We will, as I say, do the annual tax return. We will manage the property. We'll get the rental income in for the property. We would do the golden visa application as well. So we essentially act as a one-stop shop. We also open a Spanish bank account, which you need in order to get the golden visa. Now, what you will know if you've ever been to Spain, and certainly living here myself, is it is very difficult to get things done in Spain. It's very, you know, the process can be very, I say, complicated. There's lots of layers to getting things done. So unless you've got somebody behind you to help you do that, you can really struggle. We use a company called Orients, who are essentially our back office when it comes to the admin. Orients have offices in Barcelona and Madrid. And they've been doing the golden visa admin, but they've been the main provider of the golden visa admin since its inception back in 2013. So we know as a company exactly how to get everything through. Every application we've done, we get it through. And that's particularly relevant when you're looking at potentially adding children or spouses or parents to your application. You need to make sure that you can document everything that the government needs to see. But without going into all these different parts, in terms of Hbor assets and what we do, is we do everything. The idea is that any client that wants to use us doesn't need to worry about all the paperwork side of things. Obviously, there's gathering of information and forms that need to be filled, but essentially the asset itself, we fully manage it and we do all that for our clients. Now, a lot of people ask in terms of the golden visa timeline, you know, how long does it take to get the golden visa? Well, I'll talk again a little bit about Portugal. The problem that Portugal always had in terms of the golden visa program is it can take a very long time. It's actually 18 months from the start of an application in Portugal to getting your golden visa. Spain's a lot quicker. So if you look at it, like, for example, if you were looking to if you decided to buy a property today, say a property, let's say a commercial property or a residential property today, it would normally take around 3 months for us to get the deeds done, to go through the whole of the buying process, the opening of the Spanish bank account, the obtaining the NIE number, the tax number you would need. To do all that, it's going to take around 3 to 4 months, okay? Again, we're pushing through as quickly as we can. Obviously, we can get through a lot quicker, but that tends to be roughly what it is. The good news with Spain is once you've actually done that, so after that 3 months, you've got the asset in your name, the deed, you know, the property for 500,000 in your name. It actually only takes 21 days once you've applied to get the golden visa stamp in your passport, which you can see there in the middle of this one. So in around month 4, we would expect that you would then have the right to live, to work, and reside, to travel throughout Spain. Okay, so that would be normally month 3 or 4. After that, there's still part of the process left, but obviously this is, I suppose, less urgent because you have more time. But what you will then need to do is provide biometrics, your fingerprints, you know, photographs, everything like that. So you go, we come along with you. We would help everyone get that, but it's all part of the process. And then after about 7 months, 6 to 7 months, you would actually have your official residencia card. And again, we would collect that for you, deliver it for you. So that's the process. You're looking around 6 to 7 months. It's a lot quicker than Portugal, but actually it's only 3 to 4 months in order to actually get that stamp in a passport. And this goes back to what I'm saying. We still have time. We still have plenty of time to get this done. But obviously for every day and week that's going past, it's becoming, you know, it gives you less and less time. So we need to give ourselves as much time as we can. The demand, particularly for Spain, is really high. And I'm sure not just with us, with anyone, because people are trying now to get their applications in. With regards to the residencia card here, once you've got that, it's initially valid for 3 years, but you then renew it. The renewal costs are very, very cheap. It's not one where they charge you thousands to renew it. It's not. I think it's about 80 euros. It's not very expensive. And you would renew it. And every time they renew it, it's for another 5 years, another 5 years. And you can just keep doing that, as long as you hold the asset, which qualifies you. And as I say before, even if they remove property as a way of getting the golden visa, they would still honor that for anyone that, as I say, had got in on the golden visa by real estate program. So just to help people understand, just a little bit about the golden visa and what it is, okay? I mean, the idea of a golden visa in any country, not just Spain, is in return for investing into a particular country, and that could be in real estate, it can be a donation, it can be business, it can be investing into funds or into government bonds. But in return for doing that, they would essentially give you residency in that country, or ultimately citizenship. And for those who don't know the difference, citizenship is essentially becoming a passport holder. So you have all the rights as if, well, for all intents and purposes, as if you've been born in that country. A golden visa or a residency card, which you tend to get in most EU countries, is more to do with, it gives you the right to live, to work, to retire, pensions, healthcare. It gives you the right for all of that, but there's a few things it wouldn't include, things such as voting, and there's a number of other things. But it will also affect you moving around Europe, which I come on to. But basically, most European countries like Portugal, Greece, Spain, Malta, all these different countries, they tend to first and foremost be a residency program, not a citizenship program. Outside of the EU, some of these go immediately into citizenship. So straight away, you're given your passport in return for investing money. The way it works in most EU countries is once you have your residency card, once you've had it for a certain period of time, you can then change it to citizenship. And that normally be by taking a cultural exam or a language exam or something like that. So you can normally change residency into citizenship. But some people never want to do that. You know, they'll be quite happy just to have their residency. So these are the different programs we do. Now, it's a bit complicated, this slide, but it's just to bear in mind for anyone watching, you know, as I say, we're not just Spain. We are all these different countries, but I will concentrate particularly on Spain and Portugal here. So here on the left-hand side of the slide, if you can see my cursor moving, these are the citizenship programs. These are ones that would give you a passport straight away for a certain investment. So these are countries such as Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Vanuatu, Malta, and Turkey. St. Lucia tends to be the most popular one, and the actual investment amount are relatively small compared to the EU programs. But obviously, what the benefits they give you aren't as high, if you like, as what they are in say for the Portugal or Spain or Greece or Malta or whatever. So if we look at the residency programs here and we look at Spain, so the idea of Spain is that if you want to change being a resident to becoming a citizen, to becoming a passport holder, for most people, you have to wait 10 years. So you get your residency card, your golden visa card, and then after 10 years, you can actually change that to a passport by taking a cultural exam and a language exam. But a very important point to note, it doesn't apply to everybody, but to some people it does, is if one of the applicants on your, when you're looking at the golden visa, has an ex-Spanish colony passport, which I'll come on to all the countries there are quite a lot on there. If the main applicant has an ex-Spanish colony passport, you can actually change your residency card, your golden visa, in 2 years to the passport, the Spanish passport. So as in little as 2 years, you can have a Spanish passport if the applicant, the main applicant applying, has an ex-Spanish colony passport. But otherwise, it's 10 years. Now, just talking about Portugal here, and just in case it resonates with anyone watching, and Spain, you know, maybe ends up being something they don't want to do. Portugal is only 5 years to get your passport. And the reason Portugal was so popular is Portugal has no minimum stay requirements at all to get the passport. So as long as if you have a qualifying asset in Portugal, as long as you spend 1 week a year in Portugal over that 5 years, so essentially going over there on holiday for 1 week a year, after 5 years, you can actually change that residency card into a Portuguese passport. So it's very, very good. Now, Spain, you don't have to stay in the country at all to keep your residency card. So you can live and work, retire in Spain for the residency card. But if you want to change that to a passport, you then have to spend over 6 months a year here for 5 years in a row towards the end. So over 6 months, so you're essentially becoming a tax resident for 5 years. Once you've done that, you can change it to becoming a citizen, after 10 years. But again, we can go into more detail with anyone's individual situation. Some people, as I say, are happy just to have a residency card. They don't necessarily want to have a passport, but it's certainly something to sort of bear in mind. Now, the minimum investment option with Spain is 500,000 euros. Okay, so that's what you need to invest into property in order to get the golden visa. However, what we've done as a company, we've developed a product, or 2 products we've got, where you can actually do it for as little as 350,000. And we do that by actually having rental income on an asset paid up front. So the idea is somebody would invest 350,000 and immediately on day one be paid the equivalent of 10 years rental income up front, which is 150,000. I'll come into the figures on that a little bit later in the presentation. But you add the 150,000 to your 350,000, and that gives you the 500,000. The asset you bought is worth 500,000, but you've had rental income paid up front, and that allows a lower entry point as well. And there are guaranteed buybacks on that as well. But it's worth bearing that in mind. So although it's 500,000, you can do it for as little as 350,000. With Portugal, it's not 280,000 as it says there now. It's only 500,000, and that has to be into a fund. An investment fund has to be a qualifying investment fund. We have developed our own funds which do have property within them. It's very complex. I can speak to you individually about that if anyone's interested, but there are ways of doing that as well. But 500,000 for Spain, but for as little as 350,000. You can also tag on your children. Okay, it says up to the age of 18, but that's not strictly to. You can actually do them older than 18. So if you have a child who's in university, or a child, someone's in university, and it says 20 or 21-year-olds, you can tag them on as well. Okay, it doesn't have to. They have to be dependent essentially. You can also add dependent parents as long as they're over 65 years of age. Okay, but we have to prove that they're dependent. So again, that's something that we have experience in doing. And the Spanish passport, the global rankings, it says it's 5th. It's not. As of this year, I looked at the global rankings on passports, and Spain is actually ranked the #2 passport in the world. So it's a really strong passport for anyone looking to obtain an EU passport. And I think it's similar to, I think Portugal's now #3 or 4, I think now. So to Spain certainly is a very strong passport. But this is just giving you an idea of the programs that we do and how that actually works. So the reason a lot of people look to Spain, very obviously, most people obviously watching this has been to Spain. That's why you're showing an interest. But Spain is voted the #1 country for quality of life. You know, and I've lived here for 6 years. Yeah, 6 years now. Yeah, it is 6 years. And it's a beautiful quality of life. It's a great location. The weather's, in the majority of the time, is sunny. It's a very laid-back lifestyle. The old manana. You know, it's very different from I'm from the UK. It's very, very different from that. So it's a great quality of life here. It's actually the second most visited country by international tourists as well. It's got the fourth biggest economy in the EU and 14th in the world. And you notice that by living here as well. You can see there's a lot more job opportunities opening up here. There's a lot of people, you know, a lot of businesses you see them reopened. Obviously, Spain struggled along with a lot of other countries a number of years ago, but it's really coming through that now and really sort of doing well and very, very strong as an economy. It's voted the 5th best country to live in, 6th best retirement destination, and it's got the 7th best public healthcare system in the world. And I've used the healthcare here. My parents have used the healthcare here as well because they live over here, and it is fantastic, really, really good. I think the only thing with using the healthcare is obviously the speaking the language, but obviously living here, you learn that. So Spain's a fantastic country to live in. It's also incredibly easy to go across to Portugal, for example, from our office here we've offices here in Malaga. We've also got offices in Portugal, so you can actually drive between the two offices. It takes about 3.5, 4 hours via Seville. So it's a lovely drive into Portugal. And funny enough with that as well, when you drive across to Portugal, you don't get your passport stamped anyway. There isn't actually any official border, if you like. There is a border there, but no one actually checked you coming in and going. So a lot of people ask about the 90 and 180-day rule, but actually moving around quite often once you're in Europe, you don't actually have any stamps when you're moving from country to country. We'll go on to that in a bit. In terms of the Golden Visa program in Spain, that started back in 2013. So it's been going about 11 years now. And as we know that now is going to change. But how it's going to change, we don't know. But at the moment, it's business as usual. It's for the last year I've been telling, I've been doing this presentation, a presentation similar to this, and been saying it will go. It's not if, but it's when will it go. And it has come a little bit sooner. I was expecting it to be more towards the end of this year, beginning of next. So it's come a bit sooner, but we still have time, as I mentioned. It's way over 9,000 approved Golden Visa applications now for Spain. I think you're looking at more like 14 or 15,000. There was a big increase last year, and it's been a massive increase at the beginning of this year. Everyone's going for the Spanish Golden Visa now, because if you can get in time, then you're one of the lucky ones. It's actually raised well over 3.5 billion in foreign direct investment for Spain, so it's worked well in bringing in money to the economy, but obviously that can have adverse effects in terms of the property, which is where the issue has arose and why there's going to be potential changes. But one of the great parts of the Golden Visa program in Spain is you don't need to spend any time here. So this is going back to what I was talking about before. If there is an interest for people and people have the money, as I say, you can do it for as little as 350,000, but the 500,000, if you actually have that money available, you know the scheme is going to go. If you get into it now, you don't have to spend any time in Spain. So even if you know you're not moving over here for 3 or 5 years, you can get the Golden Visa without ever having to spend any time here. So other than actually having to go and give your biometrics and everything like that, you don't need to spend any time in Spain whatsoever. So it's a very good scheme from that point of view, and different from a lot of the other schemes. Any non-EU citizen can apply. The rule is you can't have a criminal record. Minor offences are accepted. So, you know, it's more to do with obviously serious criminal offences. That's where the issue is. As I say, you can include your spouse, children, and parents all on one application. And when I say one application, it doesn't mean it's one investment for the 500,000 or the 350,000. You can then put your children, your grandparents on, your spouse, all onto that one application, which obviously then makes sense. You've got one investment, and all the people on that application then get the right to live, to work, to reside in Spain. They get the healthcare, they get the pension, all that. So it's really good from that point of view. If you look at it as an investment for your family and your future, it's really, really good. And the benefits of the Golden Visa program, it gives you the right to live and to work in Spain. So there's no minimum stays. You can stay, you can come and go as you wish. You can travel freely to all the 26 Schengen countries. So you can, as I say, across to Portugal, go over to France, but you still would have the 90 and 180-day rule. So you could then reset your 90 and 180 days by coming back for Spain. So, for example, if you're from the USA, you then get your golden visa in Spain, but you then travel around Europe. You obviously, other than being in Spain, you can only do 90 days and 180 set, let's say, for example, in Portugal. But to reset that, instead of having to go to the USA, you can now just go into Spain to reset that and then stay in Spain for 90 days, and then you can go back out. If that's a hassle for people wanting to move around, then that's when you look at the passport option. So obviously with Spain, you can get the Spanish passport in 10 years or 2 years if you have an ex-Spanish colony passport. But with Portugal, when you look at the Portugal Golden Visa program, you can actually get a passport within 5 years. Now, once you've got a passport in the EU, so whether that's Portugal or Spain, wherever it may be, you can then freely travel and you don't have that 90 and 180-day rule. But with the residency, the Golden Visa program, the Golden Visa card, sorry, you can travel as visa-free, you can move around as you wish, but just bear in mind that 90 and 180 day. That may actually change as well. I keep hearing stories about this. I think a lot of the EU are really looking into whether they're going to keep that, because it just doesn't really benefit anyone. It just makes it a hassle for a lot of people. Also, with the Golden Visa, you can establish a business in any of the Schengen areas. We're not specifically tax advisors, but there are tax exemptions for expats. So people, there's a Beckham law over here in Spain, if people are familiar with that, can give you preferential tax treatment, depends on your individual situation, but bear that in mind as well. You get access to the healthcare, as we said, and also to the pension here as well. So it's a really good scheme in terms of what it offers you. So just a little bit of facts and myths and facts about the Spanish Golden Visa program. I've probably covered some of this, but just quickly. In terms of you have to spend time in Spain to maintain your residency, that's simply not true. You don't have to spend any time in Spain to keep that residency card. Once you've got it, once you've got that qualifying asset, you are Spanish resident. You only become a tax resident if you stayed more than 6 months in a calendar year. So January to December, if you spend more than 6 months in that year, then you're a tax resident. But if you don't, you can have your gold visa card, you don't have to pay the tax, you can just have that right to come and go to Spain as and when you wish. Only residential real estate qualifies. That's not true. It's any type of real estate. So it's commercial, residential. You can even buy a parking spot for 500,000 and that will qualify you. So at the moment, it's any type of real estate. That is going to change. We know that is definitely going to change, but that might be is that they get rid of residential and they keep commercial, or maybe certain areas are removed and other areas are kept. We don't know. Next one, you've got to buy one property for at least 500,000. No, you can have as many as you like. So you can hold as many properties as you want, as long as the total is 500,000. Now, bear in mind with this, if anyone owns any properties in Spain at the moment, you can only count them towards your 500,000 if they were bought since 2013. And I believe it's September or October, I'll have to double check, is the date, September or October 2013. And it's not what the value is now. It's what the value would be on the deeds when you bought them. So that's the value of it. But you can use them towards your 500,000. There's limitations in where you can invest. No, you can invest anywhere in Spain, and that includes the Balearic and the Canary Islands. The process is long and vague. It's actually a really fast process. As I mentioned before, you can do it within 21 days once you have the asset. And that's the key. Whilst, as I say, Portugal's taken 1.5 years. And it went even longer than that. It went to about 2.5 years at one point since COVID, because obviously there was a backlog. So it got worse and worse. They're now speeding that up a little bit, and they are putting things into place to speed it up. But Spain remains really, really quick. But obviously now we know there is a bit of a demand. That's what I said about getting applications in, because we know obviously there is going to be an influx in people applying. The Spanish program is expensive? Not at all. It's actually a lot less. The renewals, for example, to get your TIE, which is your tax number here, is only 73 euros. Renewing it is very cheap as well. It's under 100 euros, whilst in Portugal, it's more like in the thousands. So it's very, very good. And in terms of that, living in Spain for 10 years to qualify for the passport, it's not. It's 2 years if you have the ex-Spanish colony passport. And I'll tell you what countries they are. So if you want the passport in Spain within 2 years, the ex-Spanish colonies are Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, and Venezuela. In addition, there is Andorra and Portugal, but it would make little sense if you had a Portugal passport. You make much point in getting a Spanish passport. But my point being with this, if you are either you or your spouse or whoever it may be that's on the application actually has an ex-Spanish colony passport, and we use that for the application, then you can fall under that rule, so you can actually get the passport within 2 years. So it's a really good benefit. And whether you do it within 2 years or whether you go down the 10-year route and you have to do the 5 years here, which I said, the requirements are you have to do a basic language level test and a cultural exam. And also, and say you'd have to live in Spain for over 6 months for the 2 years, for over 6 months a year for the 2 years if you're ex-Spanish colony. And if you're not ex-Spanish colony, you'd have to do the last 5 years in Spain, and you'd have to stay for over 6 months of each of them years. So you're effectively tax resident, and the Spanish government want to see that you're adopting Spain as your place and you want to live here. Not the third best passport in the world, it is the second best passport in the world now. And as I say, it allows you then to travel to over 190 countries visa-free, and you can then live and work anywhere in the EU. So as I say, you've got the opportunity just to keep the golden visa card, or you've got the opportunity to convert it to a passport. And that you don't have to do that. That remains your choice. Or if you wanted to, you could just keep your residency card as well. What you can do as well, I don't want to confuse things too much here, but obviously once you hold the asset, you've got the golden visa because you've got the 500,000 asset. But actually, if you do come over and live in Spain, and you live in Spain for 5 years, for over 6 months a year, you then can just change that golden visa card to essentially a residency card, so a permanent residency, a PR card, a permanent residency card. And that way you don't then need the asset anymore. As long as you're living over here and you have done for that 5 years, you can get rid of the asset then because you are living here. So lots of ways of doing it anyway. So the investment options at the moment for Spain, as I said before, for real estate, it's 500,000, but we can do it for 350,000 using the rental income being paid up front. This is where it's a bit tricky, you see, and this is why it'd be interesting to see what actually happens. Because we're in Spain, if you want to do it any other way other than real estate, in terms of investments, you can do donations. It's a slightly separate thing, but you would have to pay £1 million in terms of equity into a business, which is obviously a lot of money. If you wanted to put money in a bank deposit or an investment fund, it's €1 million. And if it's government bonds, it's €2 million. So the real estate option is by far the cheapest. Now, obviously, if they decide to completely remove real estate, then that makes it very hard for people to get the golden visa full stop. With Portugal already had the option of 500,000 into investment funds. They just removed the property. So there is this kind of, I don't know if they're going to change some of these other figures here, when they actually do come up with their final summary. But we can continue to keep you informed by webinars and emails. But as I say, at the moment, all we know is real estate is going to change. So this is, I said, a complicated bit, but I sort of explain very much what our real estate offering is for anyone that's interested, because obviously if you want to get something moving, you want to get it done quickly, then obviously we can help. But there's really 3 ways that we can do anything for clients. The first on the right hand side is we can look at residential real estate. The second is we can look at commercial real estate. Okay, both would have a minimum investment amount of 500,000. Or we also do the 350,000 option, which I'll come on to, which is essentially a turnkey solution. So you'll pay the rental income up front. But I want to just first of all just talk around the commercial asset and residential. The reason I keep saying we focus on commercial is for no other reason. Well, there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason is that residential transfer taxes on a residential property are anywhere from 8 to 11.5%. Okay. This compares to around 1% or 1.5% with commercial. So you save around €40,000 on a 500,000 investment by investing in commercial as opposed to residential. Okay, so that straight away makes it more attractive if you're not going to live in the property, because you're saving yourself 40 or 50,000 euros, which all feeds back to what I'm saying about being a wealth management company and looking for the best investments and the best way to do it. Commercial assets also have higher rental yields. So if you are looking to be thinking, well, I'm not going to live in a property, but I'm going to rent it out. Well, in terms of a rental yield for a commercial asset, you get around, it's actually 4 to 6% you get. But for a residential asset, it's around 2 to 3%. So it's double. You're getting double the rent on a commercial asset than you'd get on a residential as well. There's also another point with this. I'm probably going off the track a little bit, but an issue we have here in Spain is squatters as well. Because once you actually have a property, once you get squatters in Spain, the law in Spain is bad in a lot of respects because it really does favour people. It favours the squatters. It's very hard to get people out. So if you have a property, you're not living in it and you're renting it out, it's really you've got to be very careful because if you get squatters in, it can be a real problem. So that's another reason why I think a lot of our clients kind of tend to prefer the commercial as well. So the commercial asset here, number 3, is fully managed. So we basically look at it as being a compliance asset. All you're doing is you're not getting involved with it. It's your property in your commercial asset in your name. It's all in your name. The taxes are all paid on your behalf. It's all in your name. But you don't get involved in it. It's managed on your behalf by us. Your taxes are filed by us. We do that every year for you as well. And we call it a compliance asset because that effectively gets you your golden visa. You don't then need to worry. It's really a rational decision. It's you don't want it to be an emotional decision. People tend to like to buy a house because I like that house that I've seen in Seville or whatever it may be. But as I say, if you're not going to live there, be very careful because the taxes and everything you pay on that are going to be a lot higher. So that's why I say commercial assets. They're around 1.5 to 2.5% on transfer taxes. The long-term leases on commercial assets as well, and the tenants will cover most of the expenses as well, so they're not paid by you. In fact, the ongoing costs are pretty much zero if you do the 350, and I'll come on to that as well. But yeah, it's a lot of advantage to the commercial asset. But anyone looking at residential, we can do that as well. No issue at all. We can search out for you. We essentially look for properties that you're looking for. We can do that as well. But I would recommend a commercial asset. We will find it. We do all the due diligence. We tend to focus on Barcelona and Madrid because they do tend to have higher, more growth potential, and they have higher rental yields. So we tend to focus on that. The option in the middle is the 350,000 sale and leaseback option. And this is our turnkey solution. It's unique to us. It's something that we put together. It's similar to what we were doing in Portugal, which became incredibly popular. But the idea of this is the client themselves will pay 350,000 euros, and they will immediately be paid 150,000 rental income up front. And that's the equivalent of 3% per year for 10 years. So 3% on 500,000 for 10 years will give you 150,000. Okay. Now, if you think that's 3%, and actually if you bought a 500,000 property, you're going to get a yield of anywhere between 4 and 6%. It's less that you're being paid up front because there's no risk on you. Whether the property is tenanted or not tenanted is not your concern. That's a concern of the real estate team. Or you don't pay any taxes, or that's included in that. So there's no property taxes to be paid. They're filed and they're paid on your behalf. There's no ongoing maintenance. It's all covered within the contract. You don't pay anything. So once you actually have the asset, you just sit on it. And then you have an exit route after 10 years. Well, actually after 5 years. I'll come on to that. But the idea of it really is it's a 10-year package. But I'll go into a little bit more detail with that. So the 350,000 option, as I said before, these are properties in Barcelona or Madrid, and they tend to be retail offices, catering offices, restaurants, all that sort of thing. As I say, 150,000 paid up front to your 350,000, and that gives you the 500,000. We then process that. We do all the as I say, the tax filing. We collect. It doesn't matter whether it's rented or not during that period of time. That's not your concern. And the exit options on the 350,000 are really good as well. So the idea of it really is it's a 10-year scheme. And the idea of 10-year schemes, it ties in nicely with getting the passport at the end of 10 years, if that's what you decide to do. But at the end of the 10 years, you have 3 options. The option 1 is you can actually exercise a guaranteed buyback option. And a guaranteed buyback option is that in 10 years, written into the contract, is we guarantee that we'll buy it back off you for 350,000. Now, in reality, you paid 350,000, you get your money back. It's not the best investment in the world because you made no money over 10 years. However, it's a really good backup option because you know if everything failed, property market crashed, you know you'd get your money back in year 10 and you've had that golden visa. But the most popular option would be 2, is you just sell it at the open market. So in 10 years' time, you've got property worth 500,000 now in Madrid or Barcelona, a commercial asset. In 10 years' time, it's absolutely guaranteed it is going to be worth a lot more than that because we're talking, the most expensive parts of Spain, Madrid, Barcelona, that we know it's going to be worth a lot more than that. But you have the guaranteed buyback if it all went pear-shaped and it all went wrong. But selling to the open market is logically going to be most people's best route. Or option three, you quite simply keep the asset, because if you've got an asset in the middle of Barcelona or Madrid and it's got a good rental return, which it would have, then that money then becomes yours, and then you can actually keep that as a sort of passive income, and it gives you the golden visa. Obviously, some people don't want to keep it 10 years, and this is where you can actually get out of it early. So from year 5 onwards, there's a guaranteed buyback, but obviously it's less than the 350,000 because ultimately you've had that rental income up front. So year 5 is 175,000, then it's 210,000, etc., until year 10, it's 350,000. So it's really good for people, you know, who are taking a long-term view on this, who don't want the risk and just want to forget about it and put a lower amount of money in. But the 500,000 option is another thing we do. Again, Barcelona, Madrid, we look at this, an example one we did. This was actually 600,000 because it have to be 500,000 or over. This was Bipolar, which was a restaurant cafe in Madrid. Really, really nice place. That actually had a rental income of 3,050. We manage that now for the client, and that's paid to them. So obviously, because they didn't have rental income up front, because it's a 500,000 option, they actually get a nice income coming for this, which they can then use to rent somewhere in Spain, or to, you know, to find out where they ultimately want to live. So again, the good thing about the 500,000 option is there's no, you know, you can sell that at any time. You know, it's not, when we look at the 350,000 option, it's more like a 5-10 year plan. With this option, it's not. So that's kind of it in terms of the options we have. Obviously, I'll go through a few questions I had, and I do really, really recommend anyone, as I say, take a note of my telephone number and my email, because I'm happy to make individual appointments outside of hours. As I say, I know everyone's on different time zones here. I'm based here in Spain. I think my diary's booked up for about next week, but it's completely free. It's no obligation. I can go through your personal situation and just see how we can help and give you more of an idea about how everything works. I did get a few questions come in. Let me just find them. Yeah, we had a few sent to us before. A lot of these are around, when do we think this is going to happen? I think this is the main questions we're getting are, you know, do we know when it's going to go? So let's just have a look. So yeah, the first one, is there time? So the first question, which is the key question, will there be time? You know, will there be time? So the Golden Visa program is still completely available. You will have time. But you'd have to start now. Because quite simply, what happened a lot with Portugal as well, once people were in the system, once they were in the system and they started the process, then that would be honoured. But obviously, when those all come in, if you're not in the process, you haven't started, then it might not be. We will keep you updated. We'll send out plenty of emails, make sure you know what's happening. But at the moment, you do still have time. Okay, how can UK residents live in Spain for 6 months without having to come back to the UK after 3 months? Okay, so the idea of the Golden Visa is the idea of the Golden Visa is basically it's the all singing, all dancing visa that you can have. You can come and go as you want. You can go, because I go back to the UK a lot, but because I've got my Residencia card, when I travel back to the UK, I don't get my passport stamped. I show them my card, the passport. They don't stamp the passport, so I can come and go. There's no 90 and 180-day rule because I have that. So the Golden Visa really is the best for that as well. Is it still available? Yes. So again, it's another question. Is the Golden Visa still available? Yes, it is. And in fact, I'm just looking at all the questions. There's still time before withdrawal the Golden Visa to obtain one. So I think without going too much into that, I mean, essentially, yes, there's still plenty of time to get the application in. But it will come down to timings. As I say, here in Spain, things are a little bit slow. We've got a brilliant team who can get everything through as quickly as possible. But whether you use us or whether you're going to buy a property yourself and do it that way, obviously, you just need to make sure you've got a good admin team behind you to make sure that all the forms and everything are done correctly. Because I've had it before where it was a relative of mine actually went for their card, spelt the name wrong on the card, there was bits that were done wrong, and it ended up being a complete nightmare. So you really need to make sure it's done properly. For us at the moment, because we are so busy, we only do the one-stop shop. So if you're using us for your asset, then we can help you. But obviously, we can't just do parts of the process for you. We're trying to make it as sort of effective as possible. And that's why we're going to do, as I say, the whole process from start to finish. We've done absolutely loads in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Anybody who wants to speak about it, book a free appointment, send me an email. WhatsApp me or give me a telephone call, and obviously I can go through your individual situation, and we can chat through it. Obviously, if we can't help you, we can't help you, but at least you understand your situation and what's happening a lot better. Okay, well, that's it for now. I don't want to go into any more detail. As I say, please contact me, and it'd be really great to have a chat with you and see how we can help. But in the meantime, I wish you all the best. And if we do have any more news about the Spanish Golden Visa, we will, of course, keep you informed. All right, wishing you all a great evening, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.